connection to the psoas exists in the unconscious part of the brain. Okay? For most of us, we don't realise that it exists, this muscle. Okay? And yet, this muscle is actually the core stabiliser of the body. Okay? It's actually the muscle, I mean, I call it the yoga muscle. Okay? But it's the muscle that actually holds you in space. Okay? It's one of the longest muscles of the body. Okay? So let me explain to you what the psoas is and where it is. Okay? So this is my friend. She's a bit thin. We're going to put some weight on her. She can do too much Ashtanga practice, that's the problem. Okay, so if you have a look at this, okay, can you see it from the back there? Yeah? Okay, so the psoas muscle, okay, is essentially the tongue of the pelvis, okay, and it connects, so it's one of your primary hip flexors, okay, so when you flex the hip, the work that's primarily doing that work is your psoas muscle, okay, and the psoas is, it attaches into the leg here, that's what's called the lesser trochanter, which is just inside, behind the back of the femur, and it runs over the front of the hip socket, and it attaches, but it runs the other way, okay, it starts here, but either way, okay, it comes over the front of the hip socket, and it attaches in to these 6 vertebrae here, okay, so the 5 lumbar vertebrae, which are the ones with the red dots in, and the first vertebrae of the thoracic spine. Can you see where that is? So the muscle is about 16 inches long. It's huge. Okay? It's one of the biggest and most powerful muscles of the entire body. Okay? So it actually reaches, so your navel, your belly button, is somewhere around here. Okay? Around L4. No? Yes, that's right. Yeah, around L4, L3. Okay? And this attaches all the way up 4 inches above that. So if you think about where your belly button is, 4 inches above that is where it reaches up to. Okay? And your diaphragm, which is your breathing muscle, actually sits just below that. So your diaphragm sits here, and the psoas reaches all the way up here. Okay? So the diaphragm and the psoas actually energetically connect to actually allow you to breathe down into the pelvis. It's almost like they're telephone connections that give you access into this pelvic bowl. Okay? Now, the psoas is also a highly mechanically disadvantaged muscle. Okay? So what do I mean by that? It means that as a primary hip flexor, it has to flex. To flex the leg up, if you look how close the attachment point on the hip socket is, it's about 2 inches from the hip socket. Okay? And any of you who've ever studied physics will know that to lift an object, okay, it's much easier to lift an object when it's further away from the fulcrum. So it's much easier to lift your leg from that point than it is closer towards the fulcrum point. Okay? So it's a very, very strong muscle. Okay? And it has to be strong. Now, ideally, the skeleton is designed to support, is supposed to be the weight-bearing aspect of your body. Okay? It's supposed to support you through the joints. Okay? Muscles are not supposed to be weight-bearing. Muscles are not supposed to hold your weight. Okay? And yet, through much of the patterning that occurs through our young years and the way that we hold ourselves and the way that we walk, that's often what happens. Okay? So that when we stand, okay, we should be able to stand with the psoas being completely released. But that isn't always the case. For many of us, there's often a residual tension in the psoas. Okay? And I'll explain to you why that is in a bit. Now, the psoas muscle, as I say, has got 6 attachments here. Okay, and it goes all the way into the side of the leg. Often talked about as the iliopsoas. So the iliopsoas is a name for a group of muscles. Okay, so there's another muscle called the iliacus, which comes in from here, the insides of the pelvic bowl here, the iliums. Okay, and that basically it's a fan-shaped muscle that goes all the way over the same notch at the front of the pelvis and attaches into the same point. Okay? So there's 2 muscles, the iliacus, which goes into here from the side of the pelvis, and the psoas, which attaches all the way up to the spine. And they both do similar jobs, and often called iliopsoas together. Okay? So psoas and iliopsoas are very similar, slightly different. Okay? So, I mean, it's difficult to explain the importance of this muscle. Okay? It's said that wise men ground down through the psoas. Okay? And when your psoas is functioning healthily, everything else in the internal viscera is functioning well as well. Okay? There's often an emotional quality to the psoas. Okay? What do I mean by that? Well, let me backtrack a little bit. Okay? The vitality of your body is often connected deeply with your psoas. Okay? If your psoas is functioning healthy, if your psoas is a healthy functioning psoas, it's so important for the construction of the internal viscera, which is, what I mean by that is all of the abdominal organs. Okay? It actually acts as a shelf to hold all of your abdominal organs. Okay? So all of your intestines, all of the bladder, liver, stomach, everything that's underneath is actually being held by the psoas. So if the psoas is working well and there's blood pumping through the psoas, because the psoas actually acts as a pump at the spine. Okay? If there's blood pumping through this area, it means the internal viscera is working healthily. Okay? But it's also the key postural muscle. Okay? So if the psoas is tight, what happens is, so there's tension in the psoas, what often happens is the pelvis is drawn into a anteriorly tilted position, like so. Okay? So if the psoas is tight, it can often cause lower back pain. Okay? Now, that also has the effect of pushing the abdominal muscle, the abdominal organs forwards. Okay? Which is often why you see people walking around like this on the beach or whatever, or talk about middle-age spread. Okay? And it's often to do with psoas. Okay? Now, we've disconnected from our connection with the psoas at a very young age. Okay? And I'll explain in a little bit more detail later on why we've done that. Because it's where we store most of the fear in our body, in our psoas muscle. Okay? So, the connection with the diaphragm. Okay? Now, the diaphragm, which sits at the base of the rib cage, okay, when you breathe, the diaphragm goes down. Okay? Now, the point at which the diaphragm, so when the diaphragm goes down, it's like a tent muscle, okay? When it flexes, it straightens like this, okay? And as it goes down, it actually reaches energetically down into this viscera and connects into the upper attachments of the psoas, okay? And the point at which the psoas and the diaphragm connect is what's called our solar plexus, okay? So most of you have heard talk about the solar plexus, right? So the solar plexus sits about 2-3 inches above the navel, okay, in the middle of our body, okay? And it's that point that many of us have often got an energetic block when it comes to yoga, okay? And one of the reasons why the psoas is often not able to be accessed is because of the fact that when we breathe, many of us don't actually breathe down into our pelvis, okay? So, have you heard of, some of you I know are teachers, so even as students, it's actually quite difficult to breathe down into this region, okay? When we breathe down into this region, we actually connect into the psoas muscle, okay? And energetically, you can reach down into the pelvis, okay? And it actually allows you to free the hip sockets, and eventually, and we'll talk about this afternoon, access Mula Bandha, okay? But there's often a block here, energetically, which means that when we try to breathe, instead of breathing down, we breathe up. And there's often a knot of tension in here, okay? And the knot of tension is also closely connected with the psoas.